Hey everyone, here's a quick video on how you can use Blobit to create an audio-reactive pixel sorting effect with an added blob tracking effect on top of it. It's a super simple setup, and I've linked both a normal and an interface workflow in the bio. So if you're in a hurry, feel free to use those instead. Alright, so we're going to start off with a blank canvas. So I'm going to click on New Project, and I'm going to add a load video node to load our base video. So I'm just going to quickly open that. And I'm gonna do a video to image node so we can convert the video into images that we can work with. And I'm gonna set the end frame to 120 here so we can test on a smaller range of frames before we move on to the full range of the video. Now I'm gonna add a HSL masks node, which basically helps us to isolate certain channels. So for example, I can set this to luminance, and that way I can isolate the brighter areas of the image by setting the threshold to the lower threshold to something like 0.65, so I can kind of isolate just the explosion and the particles here. Now I'm gonna quickly add a preview image node, and we can visualize what that looks like. And I'm also gonna add a contour map node, and this will make sense in just a bit. I'm just gonna quickly plug this in, and I'm gonna duplicate this one, bring it here. You can use Ctrl D to duplicate, that's the shortcut. I'm gonna set the edge threshold to 0 and the thickness to 1 because we're inputting a masked image already, so we're essentially going to be inputting a black and white mask into this, so we don't really need to play around with this edge threshold value. But suppose if you were gonna input this one directly, you might want to have to change this a bit. And we're working with a slightly smaller resolution image, so this is, I think, a 720p video, so I'm just gonna set the thickness to 1 so it doesn't get like too thick and we lose out on the details. So I'm just gonna quickly run this to see what we get. If you hover over the pill here, you can kind of see what frame it is processing and the progress in real time. So we're like halfway through with the HSL node, and yeah, it should be done in a couple of seconds. Alright, so that's done now, and let's take a quick look at what we've got. So for HSL mask, as expected, we have the black and white mask with the particles and yeah, the explosion masked out, which is pretty much what we want. And for the contour map, what we've got is essentially the same thing, but we've extracted the edges from the image, so we have a lot more details in what goes on in between the larger explosion. So the reason why we're doing this is because on the blob generator node, this whole explosion part would turn up as like one large blob, and by doing this we get to extract a lot more details from within this, so we get like a lot more blobs in the main explosion. And yeah, we also have the particles on the side, so that's good as well. So yeah, we have this now, and now let's get on to the blob track generating. So we're going to go into generators, and we have the generate blobs node here. So I'm going to plug in the contour map node here. I'm going to set the max size to 0.5 because I want to filter out like the really large blobs, and I just want to keep like the smaller ones. And I'm also going to turn on force square so we don't get like rectangular blobs, we get perfectly square ones. I'm also going to add a blob stabilizer, which will help us to filter out blobs that are like too chaotic. So essentially blobs that persist on the screen for just one frame or so. We can set the minimum history to 2, so this will ensure that only blobs that appear on at least 2 frames are present. You can of course set this to like a larger value, like 12 or 24 for example, and it'll ensure that blobs that are only on frame for like 12 continuous frames are present, and the rest will get filtered out. But yeah, this should help us to make it a slightly less chaotic. And once this is done, let's add in the render blobs node. So this is the node that basically will render out the blobs, and yeah, we'll need to put in the width and height of the original image we're working with here. We can plug in text as well if we want to render text, but we're going to render the text out separately using the render text node. So I'm just going to bring in that as well. And yeah, we'll also need to plug in the width and height here as well. Now we need to plug in the text and position. So for that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add the blob text node, which is basically a helper that helps to kind of get the text information out of the blobs. And yeah, we have dimension, area, label, score, and position as the options. Label and score is only available for blobs generated using the object detection nodes. For blobs generated using generate blobs, you're gonna get only the dimension, score, and position. I mean, dimension, area, and position. But yeah, I think we can work with that. Let's plug in the position. And I'm also gonna add a blob components node, which will help us basically extract the vertices of the blob. So we get like all the vertices, and we also have this center of the blobs, along with a couple of other additional info. So I want to position the text in the top left corner of the blob. So I'm just gonna plug in P1 here. If you wanna do it like in the center, we can plug in the center, or yeah, we can do it on any of the other edges. I'm gonna add a -12 offset, so it kind of to basically push the text slightly upwards a bit. And I'm gonna decrease the font size. I'm gonna keep the font Arial, but yeah, if you click on this and click allow, you can refresh this here, and yeah, you'll get a list of all the fonts that are available in your system. So I'm just going to cancel that, and I'm also going to add a background to this. I'm going to set like a red background, and I'm going to set very little 1 pixel padding, and that should be it. Yeah, I think we can work with this one for now. Now I'm going to add a composite image node, and this will basically help us to merge these two images together. And I'm going to duplicate this, and I'm going to add it to this one, and I'm going to use the original video as the base here. Now let's bring in the preview image node, and yeah, let's see what this produces. I'm going to click on run and wait for this to finish. All right, so that's done now. Let's take a quick look at the results. So seems to be doing pretty good. I mean, I think the text is a bit over the top, but yeah, I think this should do it. And yeah, of course, we need to change the color of the blobs. I'm just going to quickly change that here, change the line color to white to match it with the rest of the white. And yeah, I think this should work. I just want to quickly add in a few lines in between the blobs as well. So to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in the generate lines node, and generate lines basically works with a set of points. So we're going to put in the center points into this, and it's gonna take all these points and generate lines based on them. So I'm gonna do random selection, and I think we can keep the rest of this the same. I'm gonna do tracking history of 8, just because else we might not really get a lot of lines. Or let's do 12. Yeah. And max, I'm gonna set this to 20, so it's not like too over the top. And I'm gonna do render lines, and that looks good. I'm gonna put in the width and height as usual. Duplicate this. I'm gonna add this here, and yeah, for the base image, I'm gonna actually for the base image, I'm gonna use the pixel sorted image, so we're gonna quickly add that as well. Let me just quickly change this to white. Thickness, I'm gonna keep it the same. Change this to dash mode, dash gap of 4. Endpoints can be, let's say, an arrow. Let's do arc, so it's a bit more interesting. And yeah, we can, I think that's enough. I'm gonna quickly add in the pixel sort node. So we have the pixel sorting is set up as well. And I'm gonna take these images, plug it in here, and I'm gonna plug this one over to the base image. So in pixel sort node, we have the lower threshold and upper threshold, and again, similar to SSL mask node, we have the selection method as well. I'm gonna keep set this to brightness, just to ensure that we get a similar result as this one. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna manipulate this lower threshold option using an audio. So we have like an audio-reactive effect to this. I'm quickly gonna set this to 0 because I don't want any of the pixels basically excluded. So with this one, it'll create a sort of jittery effect, which is it's also pretty cool. But yeah, I wanna create a much more smoother effect. So I'm gonna set this to 0, and I'm gonna turn on reverse sort. So it sorts in reverse essentially, and you get the other pixels in the front. Oh, I'll also set the angle to 90, so we have like a vertical instead of horizontal, but yeah, you can set this to anything you want. And I'm gonna add in the audio now, so I'm gonna choose the audio here, select the music. I've already cut the music, but if you want to trim the audio you're loading, you can of course use the trim audio button, and yeah, you can set that to wherever you want. But this is already trimmed, so I'm just gonna use it as it is. And I'm gonna do a audio frame analyzer, set the target FPS to 24, matching the video. And I'm also gonna do a visualize audio node. So I'm gonna plug this in here, and yeah, I'm gonna quickly run this. All right, so this is still processing, but I think the visualize audio node is ready. So if I click on here, I can see the values here. So you can choose the frequency band to focus on. If you're dealing with a music that has a lot of bass, then it's you can set it to bass, and you can extract the values from that. In this case, I'm gonna go with something like high mids or mids. I think I'll go with something like highs, because simply because there is like a lot more value in this, and this area is a bit more like curved here, so there is like that starting effect to this. So I'm gonna go with highs for now, and this is purely like visualization. There is nothing that is processing in this one. This is just for us to kind of see how the data looks like. We can of course set the smoothing if you want to get like a slightly more smoother effect, or you can go with smoothing set to 0 if you want just the raw audio as it is. I think we could in our test we can go for something like 0.4 smoothness. So I'm gonna bring in the audio frame analyzer now. Oh no, not frame analyzer, the feature sampler now. And I'm essentially gonna set this to highs like what we did here, and I'm gonna set the smoothing to somewhere around 0.4, FPS to 24, and yeah, now we should get data similar to this as output from this. We've set normalize to true, so which basically means instead of taking the absolute values, we're working with the normalized values between 0 and 1. So I'm also gonna have to bring in a map range node, so we can set the range to match something that this lower threshold can work with. So I'm gonna set this to something like 200 to 255. So in some areas we'll have the pixel loading effect, and the others we will get the normal image as it is. And I can take this map values. I'm also going to add a unary math node, so I can floor these values, because these are all like decimal values and we don't want decimals here. And I'm going to convert a lower threshold to input now, so I can input this. But as you can see, this is a string kind of text because we're working with sliders here and not numbers. So I'm going to have to convert this to string first before I can input this. So I'm just going to quickly plug this in here. I'm going to plug this in here. So yeah, let's click on run now and see how it looks. All right, so it's done processing now, and I did change the values in the map range from to go from 0 to 255 instead of earlier we had a larger value here. And this is simply because I wanted to create like a much more pronounced effect for the pixel sorting. So currently, as you can see, we have a much more defined pixel sorting effect, and of course this with the audio will make a lot more sense. But yeah, this is the effect as of now. And yeah, I'll leave a link to this whole workflow in the description, and I'll also create a version with the interface mode, so you can switch over to the interface mode and just use it from here if you find working with notes a bit confusing. So yeah, I'll create a version for that as well, and you'll find a link to that in the description as well. So let me know in the comments if you have any questions, or if you would like me to show you any other effects that you want to try to translate into Blobit. But yeah, excited to see what you guys create with Blobit, and yeah, see you in the next video.